what's the difference between moderate and intense activity? That's going to determine how long you have to exercise for. So if you're doing moderate intensity activity, then you have to go 30 minutes in order to meet the minimums. If you are doing intense training, you only have to do 20 minutes. And so what's the difference? Well, heart rate is one way to do that. And so if you take 220 minus your age, you'll get a number. You can multiply that number by a percentage in order to use the percentage of your heart rate. And there's a more accurate way to do that, but that's a very simple way to do it. In general, if you get 80% or higher, you're moving towards that intense range. And so think of this as more like interval training. So you might do something really, like maybe doing a boot camp class or something like that, where you do something really, really hard, and then you back off and recover a little bit, or you have a few seconds before you do it again. But then you go really, really hard once again. Moderate intensity training is going to be more continuous. So in other words, you keep the same pace for a long period of time, and that's probably going to be 80% or less typically. Then the better shape you get in, the harder you can work. But initially, if you haven't been doing anything and you want to use the percentage method, do 220 minus your age, and then multiply that by 0.65. You'll find that's probably even too low. Most of you can handle that, but some of you might find it is challenging in the beginning, and you do that for your first 10-minute bout. Okay, and as you get better, you can slide the intensity up. Now, other ways to do this that don't require any computation is the talk test, which I mentioned before in the intro video. If you're at the point where you don't want to talk to somebody while you're exercising, and you're like, I don't really want to, yeah, that's probably high intensity activity. Okay, if you're moderate intensity, but you can hold a conversation, but you might need to take a breath every once in a while, right? But you could hold a conversation. That's probably more moderate intensity. Okay, on the lower end, but definitely it's moderate intensity. Okay, sweating, depending on who you are, a light sweat going is probably moderate. If you're obviously sweating profusely, that's going to be more intense type of training. And so again, these are simple ways. You can also do what's called the RPE scale, rating of perceived exertion, where it runs from 6 to 20. 6 is you're sitting on the couch doing nothing, and 20 is you're working as hard as you've ever worked in your life. Okay, and in that range, we can use these numbers, and some of them are called somewhat hard, and hard is like at 15. When you start to hit maximal training, you're in 17. You could give yourself a rating and say, yeah, I'm like a 15 right now. And that's probably on the borderline to start to get into intense type of training. You say, I'm a 12 right now. And, or again, this is a good way to gauge your workouts. I've been at a 12 now for a few weeks, but I'm noticing it's more like a 10. That means I'm getting in better shape if I'm walking at the same pace or whatever it may be. So again, these are different ways to set the intensity of exercise. Both the percentage way, the talk test, and just how you feel, and asking yourself how you feel on a scale of 6 to 20. You can even do 1 to 10, but 6 to 20 is a little bit more sensitive. It'll give you a little bit more of numbers in between in order to be able to say, well, there's a difference between a 13 and 14. Or jumping from a 7 to an 8 might be a really big deal. Okay, so just some ideas how to set the intensity. I wouldn't overanalyze this too much, especially if you haven't been doing anything. Just do something. Start moving for 10 minutes, working your way up to 30 minutes like we talked about before. Once you get that intensity up to moderate in particular. All right.